Hello, this is just my usual sound check to make sure everything's working. If you can hear me clearly and you can see me in that little box in the middle of the screen, then if you can pop a comment in the live chat just to reassure me, that would be of great help. And I will see you at past. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's In Studio Live, the 37th edition, and welcome everyone who's in the chat. I think I've said hello to most people in there. If I've missed you, my apologies. Oh, I've just noticed John Kiss has just joined, so hi John, welcome to the show, and I'm sure there'll be others joining us as we go on. Before I do anything else, and while I remember, I've got something that I need to do. I've not made my Lockdown 20 challenge photo for today yet, so I'm going to do that live on the show so that you can see my perspective of what the show looks like, and I'll edit it and post it at the end of the show. So here we go. So focus on there. And just need to go back slightly, and there we go. Yep, that will do. Right, okay, that will go up on the Facebook group sometime after the show. I still haven't posted the one from yesterday, which really was on the last minute, getting that in. I was just about to turn in for the night and realised I hadn't made a photo yesterday, so I'll process that and that one, get them on the group by the end of this evening, hopefully straight after the show. So let's get underway with the show tonight. And first of all, first thing to say, if you're new here and you're watching this on the replay or watching it live, then please just take a moment to hit the subscribe button and to hit the little bell icon so that you don't miss notifications of future live streams and future videos on the channel. And if you are watching this on the replay, please leave me a comment so that I know you've watched on the replay, because the stats are weird on that when I look at them on YouTube. So the comments really do help and really encourage me seeing those on the replay version. And please, of course, hit like on the YouTube video. At the moment, I can see we've got 8 likes. Now, I think that the record for number of likes by the end of the introduction is 10. And I want to see whether we can beat that tonight. So just go and hit that like button now. It's telling me there's 8 of them on there. So let's see if we can get more than 10 before I finish the introduction this evening. And of course, as ever, please share and let people know about the show. Let people invite them to the Facebook group, actually, because it's becoming quite a vibrant little community there. Lots of things being posted. So invite them there, invite them to watch the show. I'm always grateful for those of you who have been doing that over the weeks. It really does help, and it really encourages me as well. So if you are new, quick overview of what these shows are all about. They are weekly shows. They are every Sunday night at 7:30, and they remain on YouTube, so there's a big back catalogue of them there. Eventually I'm going to cut them down so that what you have on YouTube is just the highlights, and the full version will head over into my academy on there. But for the foreseeable future, there's going to be a big back catalogue, so if you find them helpful, something you missed, go and have a look over there. So please ask questions in the chat, and I have a couple of spots in the show where I will do live Q&A, so anything photography related, please add them in the chat there and I will get onto them. And if you're watching on the replay, then just ask your questions in the comments field. I read all the comments, I reply to them all, and anything that's a question I will pick up in the subsequent show. Now, the other thing that goes on, another way you can help the show, is if you find it helpful and you want to contribute financially to help me keep these shows going, then you can always just buy me a cuppa. Now, you've probably heard of BuyMeACoffee. This is BuyMeACoffee, but I don't drink coffee, and I famously do not like coffee. I am a big tea drinker. So this is, I have my link of as to be buy me a tea, and that's the link. You can see it over my shoulder. It's also down below in the description for the video. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has bought me cups of tea over the last week or so. It really means a huge amount to me. That it encourages me to keep going with these shows, and helps keep the wolf from the door and all that. So absolutely, thank you very much. And particular thanks this week goes to Andy Grady, who's got his name on the mug this week. So Andy, thank you very much, and cheers. Now I've got quite a backlog of people waiting for their names to go on the mug, because there's been so many people who have been buying me a cup of tea. So please be patient. If you've bought me one and you've not seen your name on the mug yet, it will happen. But every single one that I receive, I am truly grateful for, and I really appreciate it. Right, and I want to say thank you to people who have been buying me a cup of tea through that. And I have a little gift for you this week. Now, you're not going to get this one quickly. I have been working on it during the week. I've got a lot of stuff to go in it. Unlike the previous two, where I had a reasonable amount pre-prepared, the pets one, I've got a little bit pre-prepared, but there's a lot of brand new content to go into this. So it's not ready yet. And actually, that's not necessarily an issue, because I am going to be splitting this pet photography one over this week. Most of it's going to be this week, but the conclusion of it will be in next week's live stream. So basically, it's a PDF guide. The previous couple I've done, were 20 pages and 26 pages. I would imagine this one might, no promises, but might get somewhere near 30 pages in length. So it's a big guide of ideas, things to help with your pet photography. I've just, sorry, I'm getting slightly distracted here, because I've got a comment from Andy Grady about the mug. He says, cheers, Ian. Actually, let's bring this up so it's here for posterity on the channel. What he says is, cheers, Ian, prefer my rum and Vimto though. I don't care what you drink. I'm having my cup of tea, and I'm very grateful for it, Andy. So thank you for that. Right. Sorry for that distraction. Let me get back to where I was. Yeah, this pet photography guide, a lot of ideas in there, techniques that I've learned over the years doing pet photography. I'm a true generalist, so I do across all areas. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in pet photography, but I have done a lot of it with cats, dogs, and exotic animals. I've had snakes here in the studio. I've had geckos here. I've had spiders. I've done them with models and things like that. So all that's going into this guide. And anyone who purchases a cup of tea for me from today through to next Saturday, I will make sure you get a copy of this pet photography guide when it's finished. And it should be finished during the week. I'm not that far behind with it. It's just, I didn't want to rush it through and do half measures with it. I wanted to get it right and get all the information in there for you. So that's coming up. Other news, Facebook group, if you're not already a member, that's the link to it. It's where we continue the conversation during the week, and where we share photos. And going in there at the moment is a challenge that I've been issuing people, which is my Lockdown 20 challenge, 20 consecutive days of photos during lockdown. And I'm thrilled with the numbers of people who've been taking part with that. I will be going through some of those images in the near future. We're not going through them specifically tonight, but if your images from that challenge fitted in with the pets theme, however obliquely they may turn up here tonight, but most of them I'll deal with separately. I may even have to do 1 or 2 extra shows just to cover the number that's going on there. There are a lot more people taking part than I anticipated. So there's also my newsletter. I did have one go out during this week, mainly just advertising what's going on. So if you've signed up for that, you should have received it. If you haven't received one, I've done 2 in the last couple of weeks. If you haven't received those, then do make sure you sign up. There's the link. It's also again down below. Oh, excuse me. So what have we got on the show this week? Well, we've got pet photography as our main theme. I've got some image feedback. I'm going to go through some owl photos which I was sent. I've got the live Q&A and answer to some questions which were, well, it wasn't so much a question, it was some photos which were published by John Barton and the Facebook group on Portrait Chat, and I just felt that I want to talk through those and give John some feedback on that. So right, anyway, have we beaten the record? Well, my stats are showing 10 likes, although I noticed Amir said 11. So I don't know, have we beaten it or haven't we? Maybe we've only just equaled it. So if somebody wants to just double check and see what it currently says and put it in the chat, just to confirm that, we may well have beaten the record of 10, but I don't know. Right, okay, let's get on anyway. If you've got questions, put them in the chat. There is a slight delay from me speaking to you hearing me. So, oh, yep, and here's the answers to my question. Is it says 11 for on the chat for the likes, so we've beaten it. Thank you everyone for that. Oh, it's gone up to 12 according to Amir. Right, wonderful. Right, anyway, if you've got questions, you can contact me during the week. That's the email address. Contact me at ianstudio.co.uk. So it'd be great to have live questions in this slot. If you've got anything that occurs to you during the show, do get it in the chat and I'll deal with it at the end of the show. So, John posted some images this week. I got the feeling that you were asking for a bit of feedback. Your first attempt at doing portraiture, I understand. So let me go over to Lightroom and find the images on here. Just a moment. Yep, right. So, here we go. Right, okay. So it was 4 portrait images that that John posted, and I understand from John that these were at a club night, at a photography club, where somebody had set up the lights, and they were the attendees were invited to take some shots. Now, the first thing I would say about these, John, is I don't know whether you shot in RAW or whether you were shooting JPEG, but I would encourage, when you, particularly with things like portraiture, well, for anything really, do make sure you shoot in RAW because you'll get the best images out of there. Unfortunately, I don't have all your shooting data, but I can sort of guess the sort of settings. They're most likely to be somewhere around about f8, 125th of a second, ISO 100, which is what most people set up. So let's have a look at these images in turn. So I'm going to go into the develop module to do this, and let me just go over to there, and so you can see everything full screen. Now, the first thing that strikes me about this is that the white balance on it. It's definitely off. Now, if you're shooting RAW, when you bring an image into post-production, whether it's here in Lightroom or some other, you will get the option to set your white balance. Now, because this is a JPEG, I've only got as shot, auto, or custom. But I can tell you that that is a little bit too magenta-y, that image. So we need to deal with that before we do anything else. And the easiest way to do it is with the dropper tool and to click on something that is a mid-grey within that image. Now, the question is, have we got anything that's mid-grey? Well, we could try the background, but it's so close to black, you can see over on the preview that it really doesn't work. And do we know whether the top was white or grey? It may be, but I suspect there was a colour to it, a slight colour, so that's not going to be good. So what do we do? Well, there is a little cheat that we can do, and it with people. And the cheat is to do with the eyes. Now, I'm going to zoom in right on the eyes, and the way I'm going to do it, so on the latest version of Lightroom, I'm going to hold the control key, and you can see my mouse has changed, and I can just draw a section and it will zoom right into there. Now, this is very, very pixelated because of the low resolution, but it does allow me to get my dropper where I need it. And I'm looking for a part of the eye that should be white. And the thing is, you've got to avoid any veins in there. I'm thinking around about here. So if I do that and then go back to 100% on here, let's fit that, we can see that colour is a little bit better. Now, if I had a raw image, I could select flash white balance on here. Right, let's just talk about a couple of things with this image, John. I'm going to talk a little bit in a while about the lighting for the whole set, but I just want to talk about the pose here. This image would be fantastic if you were doing a passport photo, apart from the black background, because it's straight onto camera, neutral expression, everything like that, which is exactly what the Passport Office requires. However, that is never the most flattering pose for anyone. The more flattering pose when you're posing someone, and remember, it's the photographer's job to direct the subject. Now, I'm going to try and do this on camera so you can see what's going on. If I do, nope, not that. There we go. It's full screen. Right, I'm going to use the camera in front of me as though that is the camera taking the shot. Now, straight on, like this, is not very flattering for anyone. What you want is a slight angle. So I'm going to do it by rotating my chair around. And what I often do with my subjects is I already position the chair at about 45 degrees so that the shoulders are at an angle across like that, which is a bit more flattering. I then get I don't want my subject then to turn their head so that they're looking straight down the camera, face on. I actually want the face a little bit off. So I will often say, right, look over, in my case, it's the corner of the room. So I get them to look straight into the corner of the room over there, and then get them to turn their eyes to camera. So face is still over there, eyes to camera, and that is what's known as the modified full face. And you'll find that that's a much more pleasing position for somebody to be in for their portrait, rather than this straight on. Now, I hope that all worked, because of course I'm not able to sort of glance at my own monitors to find out what's going on to know whether I got my setup right there for explaining that. So that's the first thing. Think about the pose. Now, as we move on through your images, we've got that better pose with the shoulders across here, and I'm just going to do the same again on the eyes, get the colour right on there, and it's a bit easier on this one. We've got this nice area over here, So there, I would say that's probably a little bit more realistic. And in fact, I can see there's a white radiator there on that shot, so I could just pick that. And actually looking at those, oh, hang on, you can't see any of that, can you? Because I haven't changed my my settings on here. So move that over to there. Right, you can now see it. I'm just going to whiz back, Control Z, undo. Right. What I was doing was I was going to adjust the white balance on here, and the way I'm going to do it is Control down, zoom in on the eyes as before, get my dropper and find a grey area in the eye. So I can go there, and now I go out to make that fit. That's a bit more natural on the colours. And just to check, I've then realised we've got this white radiator at the background, so I can pick my dropper up. If I put that over there, you can see that the red, green and blue values are very, very similar to each other. And if I click on that, that's probably a bit more accurate than the eye. So that's probably the best white balance I'm going to get for that on there. So if that's my white balance, that's good. But because of that, we need to crop in. So let's come in a little tighter. I'm going to unlock that so that we can do something like that. And that's a much more flattering. We've got the shoulders going across as we had before, but we haven't got the face slightly turned. So that's the other thing you should do, the face straight on, unless you're doing something very, very specific. And there are times it works. Normally, for a standard portrait, that slight turn of the head on there. So let's keep moving through. Again, that's the passport portrait setup. And if I want the white balance, hit previous, bring that over. It's effectively there. So I'm just going to reset the crop. Reset there, and with something like that, sorry to crop your name out of there, John, but I would go with something along those lines if I was doing a sort of passport style face on, nice and even, eyes approximately on the 1/3 lines, something like that, with there. And what about the final one? Yeah, right, okay. The pose on here, we've got that turn, but she's turned her face. It's a bit weird, this, because what she's done is we've got the body slightly angled one way, the head turned right over the other way, and that's a little bit awkward. So really you should have the body and the head sort of turning in the same direction, eyes come back to camera. You can do shots looking away, and there are reasons why you would want to do that. But with this, the body's turned one way, the head's turned the other, it feels very uncomfortable. Also, with the turn of the head, probably just a fraction too far, because the eye there is touching right on the edge of the face, and sometimes that can look a little bit awkward. So her face should be turned just slightly, but the opposite way with that. Now, what I want to do now is I just want to select all those, and I just want to talk about one other thing with this, and that's the lighting. This is studio work. Now, I know, John, you didn't set the lighting up on these images, but I have to say it's not good lighting for it. It's very, what we call flat lighting. There's no obvious shadow one side or the other with it. So what I would do with this, and I don't know exactly where the lights were. I can probably hazard a guess. If I pick this, it looks like we've got one light at the front with it. Now, Yes, there are times you can use that kind of lighting. This doesn't feel like that kind of lighting. It just feels very, very flat with it. Not only that, I know there's a hair light here, but the separation isn't quite working because we're still at the edges disappearing into the background. So it's part working, but not fully on there. What I would do with lighting something like this is I'd have a light 45 degrees over to one side, which means we get a little bit of shadow on one side, we get illumination on the other side. And I can go into more detail on this on another occasion. And as I said in my post online, John, if this is something that you want to explore, once lockdown is over and I'm up and running again, then when I've got an event going on here, come along and I can teach you properly how to light a subject, how to pose a subject. I get the feeling this was just done as somebody threw lights up and the lighting's not good, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry to have to say that. What would be better is what I would call sandwich lighting. You have that one light on one side and then which gives you a separation on the side that the light's on, and then you counteract it by putting another light, a rim light on the far side to give separation on the opposite side to it. And that is much more flattering, it's much more interesting for the viewer to look at. The other thing is the very black background with it. My general advice when lighting someone is if they come with a light coloured top, I would shoot them on a light coloured background. If they come wearing a black top, then instantly I'll put them on a black background and light it correctly, is the caveat on all of that, because it's much more flattering than this very distinct contrast between. What you could do with it, though, one final thought with this would be, and I haven't tried this, black and white I think actually does slightly improve this image on there. Just need to bring the highlights back down a little bit and maybe the contrast up a bit. No. On there. Just try and get that separation. Yeah, it is there. I can do it by bringing the shadows up just a little on it. With something like that, maybe just bring the highlights down a fraction. Now that looks better to me in black and white than in colour. So those are the sort of things. I know there's a lot of information there, John, with that. So let's just see what's been going on in the chat. Probably people telling me that blunder I made where I hadn't changed my view on there. So, well, you've got the chat, I haven't, folks. Right, here I have now. Oh, we've just got the counters on here with it. Right, yeah, mine's still saying 10 likes on my display. Mind you, I've got two completely different views on the number of people watching as well. I've got 17 concurrent viewers on one part of my display and 11 on another. So anyway, that's an aside. So I hope that helped you, John, with there as feedback. It's not meant to be a criticism for you. For your first attempt, not bad. I think whoever was teaching that day and setting up the lights needs to improve their lighting because that's not a good way to start off with introducing someone to studio portraiture like that. They can be a lot better. Sorry if that was a bit negative, folks, but those are my thoughts. I'd rather tell it how I see it than say everything's brilliant when I don't believe it is. Right, so where were we? Right, moving on. Right, yeah, I just want to briefly mention the lockdown challenge. Well done to everyone who is taking part. I know there's a few of you on here who've been posting on there. So well done, folks, with that. It's going really well. I'm really pleased with it. I've got plans for another challenge, and this one will be for January. And this is a big challenge. It's not a photo every day for a whole year, so don't worry about that. It's a shorter term one, something a little bit different, something I've dreamt up. I'm not going to say too much at this point, but what I will say is I need a whole long list of possible different subjects, and you'll understand why later. So thanks for everyone who's taking part with the current one. Keep on making the shots, really, on that. Right, okay. Another bit of feedback this time. The owl photos by Andy Wright. Right, let me get back. Let me set Lightroom up and I'll go back over there. Right. Oh, come on, machine, that's better. And I'll switch over to it once I've found my images. Right. Yep, here we go. Right, so these images were taken by Andy at an owl sanctuary down in Devon, if I remember rightly, on there. And Andy asked for a little bit of feedback. Andy sent me the images. Sadly, one I only discovered just before we came on air, so I couldn't do anything about it, that whilst I've got full resolution, all the shooting data is missing. So when I look at the EXIF data, so things like shutter speed, aperture, and things like that, I haven't got that information. So right, let's just go through these fairly quickly, one at a time. So I'm going to go again, I'll go full screen on there. This one, really like Andy, nicely composed, and I thought it was sitting on a branch, but I've just realised that's the finger. So this is one of those miniature owls, isn't it, on there? But as ever with these sort of things, I always love to zoom in on the eye, and we can see the reflection in there. I always think that's superb. And right, if I go 100%, we can see how sharp this is. That is nicely sharp. A little bit of noise in there. Shame I don't have the ISO information on it, but not too bad. It might benefit from a little bit of noise reduction. I'll do it on this one, but the same techniques will apply to all the images. When I go to develop on here, come down to the detail and noise reduction. Well, first thing I would do is I bring the color one to the middle just to get rid of any color noise reduction. Then the luminance I will start to bring up, and typically I tend to start off about halfway with it, and that's not looking too bad at all. With that, bring detail back a little bit and a little bit of contrast detail back. That's can't go too far because that's bringing it back in on the noise reduction to somewhere like that. That's looking quite good, but that will have softened the image in places. Not too bad, actually. So I then carry on moving up. I always think these sliders ought to be in the reverse order. I then go to sharpening, and I sharpen quite a way. Now, the way this works, let me just do it with the Alt key down. The sharpening is looking for contrast, and it's adding in contrast to the areas, to the lines. And this is showing how much it's putting in. The radius is the amount that's coming onto it. So you can see, so I bring that up, how far out from those edges it adds contrast. And detail is how hard it searches for those edges. So we come up to something like that. Now we can see we've sharpened back some of this noise that we don't want. So we deal with that. Again, I'm still holding the Alt key down with masking. And as I bring that up, the white areas are where the sharpening is going to be applied. And I move it up so that it's just on the edges that we want. So it's about there, which means we don't get any applied on the back there. We've got plenty around the feathers. So that should look really nice and sharp at 100%. And it does. Still a little bit of noise in there, but not much. Just bring that up. Maybe I've gone a fraction too far with the sharpening. I'll bring it back just a touch on there to something like that. So that is something I would recommend you do with the images, Andy, that kind of noise reduction and sharpening to get the best out of your images. So nice shot on there. This one also, it does work in horizontal format, but it will also work quite nicely. Probably actually do it square. So nice square format for that one, works nice. Again, another great shot, correctly exposed on the eyes, and again, nice and sharp on the eyes as well. So good image, moving on. Now this one, I know what your problem is here, Andy. You've got something bright up in this area, which is kind of detracting. So I would be tempted to try and, every time, forget to take the lock off. I'd be tempted to just bring that down slightly to get rid of that distraction. Now that puts the owl very, very close to the top. So I would be tempted with something like this to actually make the most of that and make it into a panorama like that. Why not make use of the fact this is a long, wide image and have something unusual? As you know, folks, I'm very much a believer of you crop to the image, not to an aspect ratio. So I like that kind of big panorama aspect ratio for that image on there. Now this one's an odd one. Love the crop with it. It works nicely as that square crop, but it feels as though the white balance is off. It just feels as though it ought to be a little bit warmer. Something like that with it. And let's just see the difference between before, after. You see that change. I think it should be warmer unless it's a particularly blue bird. I think that's probably a little bit closer. Now the greens, does it need to be a little bit more green as well? I'm not sure on that, but something like that, I think, there. But lovely crop, and I like, this is one where sticking the face in the center has really worked with it. We've got that symmetry between the two sides of the face on there. Similarly, this one, nice close up. It's a little bit dark on the left hand side with it, which we can easily solve that. A little bit of shadow in there. Let me just go full screen so you can all see that one a bit better. Like something weird about this one, I like the plain background. I like the fact you've got that horizontal. I think it can be cropped in just a little bit. Yeah, you remember to undo the lock. Just something like that. I don't like the tattiness of that, and I don't know whether I can with this. This would be a bit tricky to do here in Lightroom. I'm going to give it a go though. I'm just going to cover that, and it has picked it from the right place. Let's just have a look. Actually, that's not bad. That's not bad for a fix on there. I didn't expect that to work, but that's something. Nice pose. I'd like to have seen the owl looking more at the camera on there. I know it's difficult under those circumstances to actually get the animals to cooperate. So that's a minor thing, not over worried by that. This one looks like a really worried owl. I think it needs a tighter crop because this is very close. Well, it's actually touching the frame, and I'm a believer in trying to balance an image with that. So if you've got one quite tight there, we need to just tighten that one up a bit, and I would also try and tighten it up that way a little bit as well. I think works that little bit better with that. But again, good exposure. Could it take a little bit more? Maybe just a fraction more, but not by much. A third of a stop, if any, probably about it. Now, I'm just going to go back here because we've got a whole set now of images, and this is John's wife holding the owls and modelling with the owls. Right. Now, this is one where I have to be very tactful because, to be honest, what I want to see here is the owl, not the person. No, it's not John. It's Andy. Andy's wife. Oh dear, 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 dear. Let's try and remember who I'm dealing with on these. Right, okay. There's a problem here. I don't like half a face in the shot, nor do I like losing the tips of fingers in shots. And I don't think we can quite manage to do a tilt, because if we do that, we lose the tail of the owl in there. I don't know whether we can just can we just get a position where we don't lose the fingers? Yes, we've got it. So something like that I think works better. Now, we have a problem here in that this blue is everything else is a warm colour, and that little bit of blue is just pulling my eye away. But we can deal with that. If we go into here. Now, what I'm going to do, reset everything, double click on the word effect, and again, I'm going to do a just have to come out for a moment because I need to zoom in. So crop into there, just so that I've got the area I'm working on. Okay, for the adjustment brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the flow all the way up to 100. I'm going to put auto mask on, and I am going to turn on the overlay so I can see where I'm painting with this. I want it to just get those blues for me with it a little bit. If I can come down here, just get all the blues with that. I'm doing this quickly. If I was doing this for real, I'd spend a little more time on this and try and get it all through there. That Alt means I can get rid of that bit in the middle. I got a little rid of a bit I shouldn't have on there. So I've got that highlighted. I take the overlay off now. What I can now do is I can use the hue slider to change the colour of that to something that's a little bit more warmer, and just bring the saturation down as well. Now, I've not got the edges perfect on it, but I can just do a little bit more just to deal with that. Get rid of that blueness on there. What can I do? That's probably better at that end, something like that. And bring the exposure down a little bit, so it just darkens it up. It's less of a distraction then. So if I go back to fit on there, we can see that that's not drawing the eye anymore. It keeps everything within that warm palette on the image. So it's a minor thing with that. So moving on through the others on here, couple of things just to say now. I like the close-up one here. That works really nicely on there. Now with the others where you've got your wife in shot, one of the things I'm going to be talking about a little bit later is the idea that, well, actually it's not going to be this week, it's going to be next week. I'll talk about people and pets together. The thing I want to say is about trying to keep the two together, and where it's the same if you're dealing with any form of portrait, heads closer together rather than further apart. Now, there's very good reasons why you might not want to do that with a bird of prey. So the ones where here, this one works nicely, but the problem is the bird is so far forward from your wife that she's actually out of focus on there. So the trick with something like that is to get both of your subjects in the same focal plane. Now, how do you do that? You still might want to keep the bird at arm's length, but if we think about this, at the moment, the way she's getting the bird at arm's length, she's got her arm there and her head behind. Now, if I turn round like that, I've still got my arm the same distance away from me, but if the camera, as you're watching over there, is the thing, they are now both the same distance away. So the head and the hand would still be in focus. And you just get her to turn her face around. So it's putting both critical parts of your subject in the same focal plane on that is what I would recommend. And again, I think it's not quite as bad on there. I think you managed it a bit better on that one, but that's the thing to watch with it. That's lovely. Again, you've got the problem of your wife being slightly out of focus, but this one would benefit from a tighter crop. And on there, like that. So you've got something like that is a much better crop with it on there. So that's my general feedback. Overall, Andy, I think they're a nice set of photos. I know it's not easy photographing birds of prey in these sort of situations. I've done it myself. But you've done a good job. I've got to say one thing, the exposure on all of them is great. There's only very few I've adjusted the exposure and the shadows on there. So given the circumstances you were in, you got great exposure on them, nice clean backgrounds on the images. So I would say, yeah, well done, and thanks for sharing those images with us. So let me go and have a look what's going on in chat with it. I need to do my screen. Right, okay. Yeah, Andy's saying you have to be brave to crop the wife out of any photo. Yeah. Oddly enough, my wife's not that keen on being photographed, so I have the reverse problem. I have more of a problem getting her to be in the shots on there. So yeah, that's the thing with that. Right, okay, let's move on it all leads in to where we're going for tonight. Let's have a look at our topic for this evening, which is pet photography. So first thing to say about pet photography, it's not easy, but it's incredibly rewarding photography to do on there. And the reason is we create an emotional bond with our pets. They are part of our family. But we also have to acknowledge that we are probably going to outlive our pets. and our photos become a lasting memory of a close friend. I want to just tell you the story of a pet portrait I did some years back. Neighbour of a friend of mine had a I think it was golden retriever, no, Labrador, that he'd had for many, many years, and had been always thought about, oh, I ought to have some photos taken. And he was talking about this. Right, I'm just pausing because I have got an error message from YouTube. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, your viewers will experience buffering. So my apologies if you are getting buffering on there. That is what I'm seeing at the moment, that big yellow bar on there. So hopefully it's not going to be too bad for you. Right, back to where I was. Yeah, he'd been meaning to have a portrait done of his dog. I got asked to do it. I came along, did the image. It wasn't a particularly difficult shoot for me. I enjoyed doing it. I was very pleased with the results, passed them on to him. And it wasn't very long after that that I saw the chap again. I asked after the dog, and he said that he was just so glad that I had done those photos when I did, because his dog died very shortly after I had done that portrait shoot for him. So it became a lasting memory for him. It was important to him on there. So pet photography is important. So what we're going to look at? Well, I'm going to look at some general techniques, things which will help you when you're photographing pets, particularly to do with composition. I'm going to give you some advice on wrangling the animals and keeping them under control. I'm also going to talk a little bit about studio lighting. For those of you who are interested in doing pet photography in a studio environment, we're going to look at some humorous aspects, basically case studies of shots that I've taken, mainly of my cats actually, not all of them. And then I was going to do it this week, but I'm postponing it till next week. I'm going to look at animal-human interaction, getting the owner and the pets together. And that's for both portraits and also for model shoots as well. So for those of you who are into working with models, some of you will know here at the studio I've run events with models and exotic animals. And sometimes I've done, that's included art nude incorporating exotic animals, for example. And so next week I'm going to go through some of those sort of techniques and the ideas and some of the things to do with that. And a lot of those will be in terms of case studies. I'll bring up a photo, I'll talk about how it was created and give some advice. So right, the first bit of advice I want to talk about is about shooting at the right position. We want to shoot at eye level to the pets, same as we would do with our human photos. Yes, there are other positions you can shoot from, but your standard shot should typically be at the pet's eye level. Here, we're looking down on the dog. Now, yes, I know we look down on our pets, that's how we normally see them, but if we shoot them at their level, it becomes almost a more intimate thing. It becomes more about them rather than about us looking down on them. So this is the dog I was talking about, Harvey, the shoot I did. That is more the angle. I got down to shooting him at his level. Much better image for it, much more interesting image for shooting at that level. Let me give you another example. Here, this is he's not Tuvok. The owner of this this kitten is no longer a kitten, as this was a long time back, they name all their cats and dogs after Star Trek characters. So this was Tuvok. And you can see I'm looking down on Tuvok here, playing with the ball. And that's not ideal, but if I can get down to Tuvok's level, can you see that's a much more interesting shot? We can see through the legs. We can see how this poor little kitten has been trying to chase the ball and has now lost it and doesn't quite know where it is. So it's a much more pleasing effect getting down at that level. Now, that's not to say we can't do the shooting down, but save it for effect shots. Look down for an effect, for an aspect like that. Make a feature of that downward angle, and you perhaps use a wide angle and deliberately introduce distortion, as I have done here, and that gives another sort of aspect to your shots. So if I'd done that with a normal lens, perhaps wouldn't quite work. With the wide angle lens, yes, it does. Now, getting down to an animal's level can be tricky. If you struggle with that, what do? You can bring them up to your level. Now, here I brought Tuvok up onto a chair. Actually, I have a feeling he might have brought himself up onto the chair, but no, it's probably a little bit too high for him. But anyway, we put him up on the chair. White chair, white background, black cat. Now, I don't normally do that contrastiness there, and I had to do a little bit of work in post-production just to bring the detail out because the black on white on there. But this one, it's one of those times where it has worked. Bring them up to your level, even if it's just allowing the dog onto the sofa for a while, so that I could crouch down a little bit to this dog's called Bertie, down to Bertie's level to get this shot. Actually, taken in my studio here. He wasn't here to have his photo taken. I was running a training course. Bertie's owner was on the course, and it was a point where Bertie couldn't be left alone for any length of time because if he was by himself, he got a little bit distressed. So his owner asked if he could be brought along to the event, to the classroom-based training I was doing, and Bertie just found a nice place to sit for the duration of the course. He was absolutely no trouble at all. At one point, he just sat up on the sofa, and I thought, yeah, that's too good an opportunity to miss. So I got a great shot of him on there. Now, I said about black on white. My favourite's always black on black here. So this is Tuvok on actually a black sofa with black cushions, black backgrounds behind. And yeah, I had to do a little bit of work in post-production, but don't be afraid to do black on black with things. There's something really special about that kind of effect if it's lit properly. And ideally, I would improve on this lighting, but it's sufficient. It was enough. It's difficult to know where the pets are going to arrive. And Tuvok was a really difficult one to wrangle on there. But the thing to watch out for is either you're going to need to meter it correctly, or if this was in available light, maybe you were shooting at home or something like that, or out in the garden, you got something black that was on, you need to get your exposure correct, which may mean if you're in aperture priority mode, then you'd need exposure compensation because the camera will automatically try to make black, all the black areas appear mid-grey. If you're in the studio, meter it correctly to make sure you've got that lighting so that it appears black. Not underexposed black, but black on the black background. Another bit of advice, I'll call this pause for thought, is sometimes we don't actually need the whole animal in the shot just to tell a story. And I quite like this one. Just the cat's paws up onto the table. And this is my late cat, Sam. And I was doing some tabletop photography at home and Sam always likes to be the centre of attention, and decided that I ought to be photographing him rather than what I was photographing. And he started by putting his paws up onto the table. He's not allowed on the table, but I let him get that far and to create the shot. Now, why did I just go for the feet? Well, if you saw the full scene, it's so cluttered behind that it wouldn't have made a good shot. So just concentrating on that detail really helps the image work. And so we can do that to create an unusual shot, something that helps tell a story that's more interesting, and your eye will go to something like that thinking, oh, that's a bit different. So that, right, let's have a look at pet wrangling. And how do we shoot animals which don't want to be where they're meant to be? Well, here's the way I do it. I get the owner to be near the pet. Now, I think this one is called Cisco. Again, a Star Trek name. And you can see Cisco's owner just at the edge of the frame there. So that's the setup. But what do? In camera, I crop the shot so that she's just out of the shot on there. Now, I suppose ideally what I could do with doing is just extending the background on this side and lessening it on that so that Cisco is looking into the frame rather than out of it. But that's a minor thing, but that's how we do it. It means if Cisco starts wandering off, then the owner's there to put the dog back where it needs to be. And often I'll just say, just keep stroking the dog at arm's length, and then when I'm ready, just withdraw your hands, or when he's settled down, just withdraw your hands and I'll get the shot. And then the dog might toddle off somewhere and we bring them back and we repeat until we get the shots that we're looking for on there. What about this then? Again, it's all under the heading of pet wrangling. How did we create this? How did we get Tuvok to stand on his hind legs? Well, it's really, really easy, actually. And that's it. We just have a little bit of his favourite food just up out of the frame, and that keeps Tuvok interested in that. And eventually, as you saw, he went up on his hind legs, and I was able to frame the shot of him reaching for it. And that was just, the food was again just out of the frame on the original shot. So that's how we do it. What about lighting in the studio for pet photography? I have a particular favourite lighting that I use when I'm doing pet portraits, as I have here. It's this high key lighting. Now, this high key lighting is not lighting I particularly like, but it works really well for pets. White background is a simple white background setup. It's one I use for pets and children. And that's about it with it. And it's this lighting setup. It's either two umbrellas or one umbrella and one softbox. I tend to end up being one umbrella, one softbox here with it, and two lights on the background to overexpose that to pure white. And then I can shoot from there. Now, why would I do it like this rather than lighting just from one side? Well, the main reason is we don't know where pets are going to look. They have a habit of looking in the direction you don't want. So if I'd set up some really nice shadowy light, and the dog almost certainly would decide that he wants to look in the opposite direction, which means I get the shadow on the face, which is not where I want it. Or the cat's wandering around. So basically, this is a flood the area with light setup. And it doesn't matter then exactly where the animal is on the set. It doesn't matter which way they're facing. I can still get a good shot. And just to show a couple of examples using this lighting setup, we can see here, this is one that I did that with. And also, actually you may not be able to see it on the screen, but if you actually look in the catch lights on that image, you can actually see there's a square softbox and a round umbrella is what I'm using on there. Softbox is camera left and the umbrella is camera right on there. Similar sort of lighting setup here, but this time we've also introduced props. A couple of boxes of Christmas presents and a Christmas tree to create this Christmas photo of, I think this dog was called Jake, this one. So again, similar lighting, but I've just added props in there. And again, because it's a flood the area with light, I don't have to worry too much about shadows created by the props that I've put in there. Right, let's talk about humour and pet photography. Excuse me a moment. Right, and I'm going to do this with sort of case studies, really. Here we've got a cat reading up all about cats. And the thing to say about this is if you are a pet owner, you are going to get the opportunities to create them. So just make the most of them and take the chances when they come. And also don't be afraid to so adjust reality is probably the thing, or to style the scene. Story behind this shot, Sybil, that's our cat or our lake cat in there, was lying on the spare bed in the guest room, excuse me, and also dumped on the bed was this book about cats. It was on its side, off to one side, but it looked almost as though she was glancing in its direction. But it really didn't make a good photo. So what I did was I got the book that she'd been looking at and I stood it up in front of her. So make it look as though she's reading it, I opened it up. And I then, to simplify the scene so that I hadn't got clutter in the background, this flat duvet that she was on, it was a bit bunched up. I bunched it up a bit further on either side of her. And then I think this was with flash. I'm going to talk a bit about using flash in a moment, but I think this was with a flash. I then just got the shot of her apparently reading the book. So the humorous shot set up that way. This one again is slightly a chance shot. It was one I spotted what was going on. This is our other lake cat, Sam, and he was on one of these cat playstations. And the things to note about this shot was I was aware of him. He was, and there was a game he sometimes played that he would be underneath and he would pop up out of this hole to grab whatever was on the top of it and paw at it. So being aware that's where he was, I grabbed my camera and I think I was dangling something to get him to come up on there. But I got myself down to his level so that I just got the paws peering out and the eyes peering out on that. And really, it's because of that angle that really makes it work. But because there are a lot of colours going on there, it's actually a yellow background, a ginger cat and a brown cat PlayStation. Converting it to black and white was, I felt, dealt with the colours a lot better, but it then sort of lacked something. So I added this sort of sepia toning to it, using at the time split toning, which is now, of course, colour grading within Lightroom. Now, this is another humorous one. Sybil, Sam's sister, so I had a habit of jumping into any form of basket. If you left anything open like that, she would jump into it. I just wanted to capture it. It was part of her personality. But I simplified the image by moving the basket onto a bit of carpet where there wasn't clutter around. So it's just the basket. She was quite tolerant. She would actually let me pick up the basket with her in, hold the handles. I could carry her around in that basket and she'd quite enjoy it. So I moved it to a suitable place, got the camera, put the flash gun on there, and this is one of the times where I will use the flash in ETTL mode, so through the lens metering mode. But what I do, and you might be able to work it out from looking at the shadows on there, I do not point the flash at the animal. For these sort of shots, I point it directly at our ceiling. It's at home, and we've got white ceiling, so it just bounces off there and gives a nice soft light that's enough to illuminate Sybil, and you can see the shadows on there to show that the light's coming down from above. So it's coming off the ceiling rather than direct from the camera. Same cat, different basket, same technique. So again, I framed it to try and keep the everything simple. Also notice what I've done with it. Rules of composition apply. I've actually got in there strong diagonals, 2 of them. I've got the one from above coming through there, the one across. I've got the rule of thirds, she's about a third of the way from the bottom. Oh, excuse me. With that, and again, same flash technique, bounced off the ceiling to get the light in there on that. And that was ISO 400 f11, so everything is in sharp focus on there. Another bit of fun, similar sort of lighting technique. This time Sam, having jumped into an Amazon box, and I use it as a joke about it's amazing what you can get from Amazon these days. So make cat in the cat bed. They're always more interested in the boxes, as I'm sure you know. But what I did with it is I desaturated it a little bit, not a huge amount, there's some desaturation going on there. Again, bounced the flash off the ceiling and added a vignette in post-production to sort of, again, keep drawing you in to the cat in the middle. Now this is one where it is bang in the middle, and it works because we've got that framing all the way round, and we've got the different sides mirror each other. We've got a mirroring going on here, mirrors the other corner, and that side mirrors that. So it's the mirroring that works and allows us to put the subject bang in the middle. So those are the sort of things to think about. When you are placing a subject in the middle, look for some form of mirroring, and that will help it work. Moving into the studio now, and here looking at exotic pets, common boa. I hope you can see this on the video. It's not very clear on my little screen. I hope it's clearer on yours. But the snake here is on black vinyl, and that's to get the reflections on there. And the lighting is very similar to the lighting that I did for the white background. Lights either side because I don't know which way a snake's going to face. So it's generally flood the area. I think I was using 2 softboxes probably with this, looking at it. But I've positioned them so that the angle, they don't reflect in the vinyl. So they just illuminate the vinyl. The vinyl's big enough so that the edge of it's just off the frame up there. We may have curved it slightly. Probably not actually. And to create that effect. And it really helps and works with it, and it's the reflection that makes the image work. Again, exotic pets, and we've got a crested gecko here. Slightly different technique on this one. These tend to be a little bit slower in movement, so we can control a little bit better where they're going to face. This was a wooden post pre-mounted that the gecko sits on. And we could just move the post around. So the background is actually a large sheet of black mounting board. The gecko's on this wooden stump, and we just moved it round to get it with the right lighting. And the lighting is a single softbox, and it's camera right. And it's fairly close in, so it's going to wrap round, but there's enough, it gives me enough definition on there, and we can see where it is from the reflection in the gecko's eye on there. Now this one is again one of the snake shots, a boa on here, And this time blue background, and I think I was illuminating it with a softbox. Is there a reflection in the eye? Might be. I think that was the softbox on there from one side. There's a little bit of definition. Might have been a fill in from the opposite side, but he's actually being held by his owner, by his wrangler, so with the blue background. And there's enough light spilling from the light on the snake just to give a little bit of light onto the background for the colours to flow into there, rather than it being lit specifically on the background. So that's as much as I want to do today on pet photography, of specifically going through techniques. I'll carry on next week with that. There's not much more to say, but it's just about introducing with people, and that will be part of next week's live stream. And I've got some other things I'm planning to put into next week's live stream as well. So let's move on to image feedback. And this is me going through the images that were posted in Facebook this week. I'm just double checking there's anything else that I need to say in. We've had some more go into Facebook, but I don't think I'm going to have a chance to look at them. I'll just check on here. One. No, it wasn't another pet one. That's okay. Right. Okay. Lightroom over on my screen. And right. Let me just set this up, and then I'll flick it over to show you. Right. Right, here we go. Right, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Quick feedback session on these. Again, I think all of these are pet related, with possibly one exception that I just wanted to talk about. Right, from Bill, love this one of the face-to-face pet and owner. Works really nicely. And this is one of the reasons it works, is it's got the strong diagonal running through it between the two faces on there. So that works really nicely, well exposed on there. Nice shot, Bill. Peter, right, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about get down to the animal's level. I like the idea of the shadow. I think that was part of what you were trying to achieve on there, but I don't think it's quite worked with it. It would have been much more interesting if you were down at the cat's level on that one to make it work. Now you see the difference. There's another one of Peter's, but this one, he's at eye level with the cat. Beautifully framed on the 1/3 line for it, nicely framed edges as well. Lovely texture to the whole thing. There's action going on with the paw reaching out and all of those things in there. That is just an absolutely cracking shot, Peter. Well done with that. So much better than the previous one on there, but I just wanted to call that one out on there. Karen. This was Karen's introduction, contribution to the pet photography things. Right, now, Karen, a couple of things to say about this. I am not going to say anything about the positioning on there. I believe that was positioned like that by her son. I'm saying nothing on there. What I am going to say is, watch the white balance. I think there's a bit of a colour cast going on here. I love the white background with it, but that's going to develop, and I think we need to just... Oh, I need a darker area. Let's try somewhere down here. I think that might be... Oh, I don't know. It's almost as though there's two different colour lights going on with this on there. But just watch that white balance. Now, one of the things I'm going to talk about next week, which is not to do with pet photography, but my other half of it, is I'm going to talk about presets in Lightroom and ways we can speed up our work by using presets. I deliberately haven't been using presets when I've been going through these feedback sessions. But one of the ones I want to set up is, as I said earlier, you can't do all the different white balances in here for JPEGs, except you can. There's a way to do it by using presets. I'm going to talk about that next week and make that available to people. So there we go. Right, moving on. Helen. Right, this one, Helen, I get the feeling it was a bit of a grab shot on there. I would just watch a couple of things with it. The clipping of the dog's ear there. One of my people know this by now, or should do. One of my pet hates, sorry, no pun intended. One of my pet hates is clipping edges of limbs. So edges of ears, edges of fingers, toes, things like that. So that I just immediately go, on there. And the background's a little cluttered. We can see there's something going on here on the left-hand side. Don't know quite what. So just be careful with your backgrounds. Maybe encourage your dog to go and sit and pose somewhere else with a better background. Elliot, don't know whether you're watching. I'm guessing you probably wouldn't be live if you were. Elliot's in Canada. This is nice. It's a lovely shot. Just got a couple of things to suggest. It's very, very slightly underexposed. And I would suggest just bringing the exposure up slightly, the highlights down a bit, and then the shadows up, so we can see that wonderful detail in the pug on there. That's about there. I'll bring those highlights down just a fraction more. I think that was blown out in camera and we've tried to rescue it a bit. We've got most of it back, but it's a nice shot. It's a nice black and white conversion. So if you need, I don't know how you did the black and white conversion, Elliot, but if you are interested in various techniques to do with black and white conversion, have a look at one of my live streams about 5-6 weeks ago, where I went through black and white photography on there and went through various methods of doing conversion to black and white, which might help you. But this isn't bad. It's a really good conversion of it. Now, the other one, again, this is down to what I said earlier about getting down to the animal's level. Elliot did mention in his comment that the dog is blind, and we can see from the eyes the effect on that. So with something like this, I think come down even further to dog's level. And I think you were for most of this, but it just does look a little bit down. So maybe a little bit further back and zoomed in perhaps, and just avoid the clipping of the ears. The pug one was the better of the two shots, but a nice attempt as well. Peter, I like this one. The dog chewing on something. It's comforter or rug or something like that, or carpet. It's a nice shot. I think it's one that I think might work well in black and white. So if I have a look down my list, and yeah, black and white 7 works nicely on there. So we go with that and we close. Now we've got some highlights here in the background which are tending to draw the eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an adjustment brush and again reset everything, but I only want to affect the highlights. So I'm just going to bring the highlight slider all the way down and then paint on. And have we got the flow? take the auto mask off, and that should darken those down just that little bit on there. Now I'm going to just bring the exposure down just a fraction, just to dull those off, and bring the shadows up because I don't want those to get darker with it. So that's just pulled that back so that they're less of a distraction. Can I go further with it? Yeah, I can get away with that. So that's worked with that. We've got a little bit of lightness at the top. Can I lose that with a crop? I'm getting dangerously close to the top of the dog, but just doing that might be enough on there. And I would try something like that, and then maybe just a little bit more clarity, a little bit more contrast. Doesn't need much on the contrast to something there. So before, after. Again, just different ways of looking at it on there. I don't know which you prefer. I just thought that having a different take on it might be interesting. James, who appears to have been adopted by a cat, according to his post. It is. Just watch your focus, James, because that's focused on his nose, not on his eyes. I don't know what your shooting data is, but I'm guessing probably about f2.8 with that, because it's a very, very shallow depth of field, which would work if it was on the eyes on there, and perhaps a vertical crop, which might have allowed you to get the that missing paw in there. The fact that it's missing might mean the best thing to do is to make it look as though it's intended to be missing by doing something like that. Ooh, too close to those ears, about there. So we come in a lot closer. Just again, is a minor thought on composition on there. Donna, I love the expression on this this one, but it's slightly underexposed, and I'm not convinced that was intentional with this. It might, if it doesn't look underexposed on your monitor, I would suggest you need to calibrate your monitor, because I think it needs to be brought up to something like that. Bring the shadows down slightly. So the exposure is just over a stop, which from experience tends to be what I've found with a lot of underexposed with a lot of uncalibrated monitors. It tends to be about a stop because they're way too bright by default on there. So the problem would be it might look great on your monitor, but if you were to get it printed, it would come out dark. But love the expression. One thing I would consider with this, and I can only go so far to demonstrate this, but I would wonder about just doing a tilt with the camera. And I would like to have seen this done in camera rather than in post-production. But doesn't that give a different effect to the dog? Just that little quirky tilt with it. Now I've cropped the ear, so what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to go with the square crop, and I'm going to go even further and make it look as though that crop was really intentional. And I think that's a fun sort of expression, which makes it look a little bit more quirky. The fact that it's got its head on one side. Now we know it wasn't, but by tilting it gives that that expression to it. This is the one pet one one non-pet one that I've included. Again, nice shot, John, on there. So I would be tempted to just lighten it up a little bit. I don't know whether there is too much texture and clarity in it. maybe just bringing that down very, very slightly to something like that. Difficult to tell on it, but it's a nice black and white conversion. I just wanted to say well done on it. Right, back to one of Bill's, the dog shaking all the water off. Okay, fantastic shot, Bill, on there. Huh? What? Oh, there we go. Come on. Right, yeah, there we go. What Bill's done here, he's done the right thing. He's got the light coming in from behind. The only nitpick I've got on it is a little bit overexposed on the back there. Now, some of that might be due to Facebook compression, but I suspect just watch that with the when you're doing it. This is one way you just needed to just bring it down slightly. I know with these it's spur of the moment. Getting the dog to do that on command is tricky, so it's well captured. I really do like the fact that you managed to get your shutter speed fast enough to freeze everything, both the movement of the dog and the all the frozen droplets on there. Well done. David, again, another one that's a little bit underexposed. I would say, yeah, about a stop. Check your calibration on your monitor, David, for that. It's the resolution on it means it's a little bit tricky to be able to comment about critical focus on there. It looks almost as though it's just in front of the eyes, but I can't quite tell. It might be on the eyes. It's definitely not on the nose with it. I just wonder whether this one probably ought to be a black and white. I think the black and white works better with it for that one. Right, John, with your koi carp. This one is lovely and sharp. I think you said yourself the framing difficult because they just won't accept any instructions for posing. But I do like this. It feels as though it needs a bit of a tilt to it. So maybe something like that on there, but lovely colours. And I know from your comments that you'd used a polarizing filter to help cut through the reflections with it. So well done with that. Now the other one, this one, and this is a tricky one. It's, to my mind, it looks out of focus. I'm trying to work out where the focus is on it, and I think it's back here. I think it's just behind the eyes on there. Now, I know this is incredibly difficult to do, to photograph something like this, but it's a problem because the mouth almost appears to be the thing that we want to look at with it rather than the eyes. So it's a really difficult one to advise. Plus, obviously, we've lost a little bit up there. I would wonder, with something that's as tight as that, I'd almost be tempted to go to that panorama shot. And then, if the eyes were pin sharp, they're going to be on a line with the fins, hopefully, with it. Again, I haven't got your shooting data, but it'd have been nice to have a wider depth of field with it. And I think it might be possible, if anything, I'd forward focus with something like this, just in front of the eyes. Remember, with your depth of field, you've got 2/3 of it behind your focus point and 1/3 in front. And this is almost looking like it's just behind the eyes on there. It feels as though you'd focused on the eyes, the fish kept coming, and you weren't tracking it. So maybe continuous focusing might have helped with that one. But like the colours, with something like that there, I would be tempted with Lightroom or whatever just to remove it. So something like that, so it's not drawing us away. But yeah, nice nice image. Peter, the cockerel. I wish I had the shooting data for this one. I don't think I have. No, I haven't. It looks a bit soft, and again, I can't tell whether it's a focusing issue or I suspect camera shake on it. And you? No, I'm not sure. Not sure at all with that. It's just that it's not as sharp as it should be, I'm afraid, on there, and that's letting it down. You'll get away with it, screen resolution, just about, but if I go like that, you can, at that sort of resolution, you can start to see, even on the video, it's not as sharp as it should be. And if I zoomed in further, it clearly isn't. However, if I do, no, that wasn't the one I was after. No. As I zoom out to so that sort of size on the screen, that's starting to look fine, especially if I did some sharpening on it. And this is one time I am going to use a preset, save myself a bit of work. There. And that's just my noise and sharpening. But yeah, it's not quite done it. So that's the difference. It's a very subtle difference between the two on there. It has dealt with a little bit of noise in the background. But no, that's as much as I can say on there. Nice framing. Neil, love it. A little squirrel. Works because of the angle on there. I do get the feeling it needs to be just a fraction warmer. Not by much though. Ooh, no. I'm going to reset that actually. It's a bit too blue. So right, just a fraction warmer like that. With it, maybe a fraction greener. No, not sure on there. With that, really nice shallow depth of field with it, and it's just a cheeky sort of look on there. Not a pet, more of a pest actually, but and I do know it's part. I think it was part of the lockdown set. So well done for capturing that. Now. I just want to say a few words before I go through these next set of images. This next set of images from Amir are effectively a masterclass on pet photography. I'm really, really impressed with them. And I don't know whose pets they were that you were photographing, Amir, but these shots are absolutely spot on. The focusing is brilliant. You've caught them at exactly the right moment. I'm assuming you were using focus tracking, continuous focusing, and you were probably in some form of sports mode or continuous shooting to get the exact shot. Doesn't matter how you did it, and they're all superb, and you've got brilliant expressions on the faces. I think the colour balance might be slightly out on this one. Just feels as though it needs warming up very, very slightly on it. Just something like that. So we'll do there. But love the expression on it. And just works. This one as well. I think you've been playing around with vignettes on it, but we've got just enough separation on the background there. I'd like to see just a fraction more separation. Can I create it? Difficult actually to do it in this version. Maybe just a little bit like that, just so it stands out a fraction more. But obviously done in a studio with, by the looks of it, a softbox and either an umbrella or an octobox on one side, but lovely and nice depth of field, everything. Ticks all the boxes, Amir, well done, well done. And the same with these. Again, feels a little bit cold on there. I'd like to see it a little bit higher, and maybe, again, it's because I've got the JPEG on here. Just watch those highlights. I don't know whether you can recover them with the raw file, but just be careful with that. But just needs maybe just a little bit of warmth to it. And again, spot on, well captured, lovely shallow depth of field, exactly spot on with the depth of field. The dog is entirely in focus. You've got the action, and just a masterclass on those action shots. So well done, and thanks for sharing. And Bob, I think this one's slightly out of focus, I'm afraid, and slightly is a little bit cluttered in the background on there with it. Yeah, interesting shot, but I think I've seen better from you, to be fair. This is curious because I can't quite make my mind up what it is that's on this chap's shoulder with it, but I like the atmosphere on it. Maybe, I know the smoke's part of it, I'm just wondering whether we've got a little bit too much of the smoke on there, whether we just need to tighten this up a little bit. Maybe it's something like that, but I wish I knew what sort of creature it was on there. Richard, another brilliant shot. Now, all the things I've said about uncluttered backgrounds, this one has a cluttered background, but Richard has made it work because it's actually given a context to the dog. It's given a location that it belongs in, but it's sufficiently out of focus. It's not distracting. It just feels so right with it, and there's just enough of it in there that everything works. So we've got the battered door and the lock and the old kettle and the bench there with the flowers, and it just feels as though this is the guard dog. This is the dog at home, majestic in its position, well exposed, absolutely spot on. Well done, Richard. And from Robin, a wren. We have here, again, not so much a pet, more wildlife, but like the capture with it, like the out of focus background, and the fact that you've caught it at the moment it's singing just makes it all that more interesting. So just well done. And that is the last of those. So let me have a look what's been going on in chat while I've been doing that. Oh, a few things have come up. So let's have a look what we've got here. Oh, Elliot has joined us on there. Yeah, if you just to say, Elliot, that if you want to catch the beginning, once this is right. I was just looking at my display there. It seemed to be doing something a little bit odd. If you want to catch the bits with that you missed, the opening part, you can always, it will be up on line for a while. Great to see you on board here. I hope that the tips helped on there. So let's move on and just get to the end here. Right. So. Anything new? No new questions in the Q&A on there. So all it leaves for me to do is to wrap up. And I just want to thank everyone as ever for watching. Everyone for letting me rabbit on about your images. Again, no pun intended. Rabbit on it. So as ever, If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. Please comment if you're watching it on the replay and hit like. Now, my count is up at 11, so I don't know what the count is for everyone else on there. Thank you. And once again, thank you for those who've purchased a cuppa for me on there. That's the link as ever. And thank you to Andy for this week's cuppa on it. And just to say, anyone who buys me a cuppa this week between now and Saturday will get the pet photography guide for free. That will be sent out when I finish writing it on there, on that. So next time, just to let you all know what's going on next week, I'll pick up on the last remaining bits and pieces on pet photography, and I'm going to look at Lightroom presets. And I'm going to call this a free week for photos in the Facebook group. I'm not going to set a theme. Feel free to post more pet photos. You can never have enough cat photos, can you? Can you? Anyway, post your photos there. If you've got photos that you are struggling with in Lightroom, do post those, because I'm going to look at some tricks with Lightroom using presets, and we'll have a nice. I'll have something to do with that to give away to the supporters of the live stream as well. And just so that people know about the Buy Me a Cuppa thing, anyone who buys me a cuppa will get whatever giveaways I'm doing. So if you've bought me 3 cuppas, you'll get 3 giveaways from that point on. So I've got a giveaway planned to do with Lightroom presets. I'm hoping to create a Lightroom preset pack during the week to give away. I've got a few that I use, a few things that I do regularly that I've been meaning just to create the preset for them, because I do them so often. So I'm going to bundle all those together, and that will be available next week as well. And Bob tells me it was a cat on the shoulder of the person in that photo. So thank you for that. And thank you everyone for watching. And until next time, I'll see you in the Facebook group during the week. But until next Sunday, keep making great photos. And thanks for watching. Bye for now. Right, this is the bit I do the alternative ending for when I do the cut down version, and that goes something like this. Thanks for watching this cut down version of InStudio Live. The full version's now over in my academy. Some of the highlights from this will be appearing on the various YouTube channels, so make sure you subscribe to those. And thanks for watching. Until next time, keep making great photos, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.